Hello and welcome to Campaign Comrades, your favorite leftist gaming podcast. I'm your host, Ben, and with me as always are my co-hosts.
I'm Mike.
I'm Matt.
What up? What up? It's Rick.
We have a lot to talk about today, folks. A lot has been going on. But before we jump into it, I know there's one thing that's got one story that's got Mike real heated. So Mike, why don't you just take it away? Give us the goods.
Well, I could say everyone on this podcast ascribes by the motto ACAB, and within the past week or so, Pokemon Go has been a comrade to the cause in getting cops fired. We had two LAPD officers that were fired in 2017 for catching a Snorlax. These two dinguses were, chasing the elusive, sleepy Pokemon for like 20 minutes throughout LA while ignoring a robbery call. Just not doing their job. Just letting the LA taxpayers' money go to waste catching a large sleeping Pokemon.
It's kind of funny. A Snorlax is essentially a cop. Sounds like, just a fat animal that sleeps all day. What's the difference?
It could not be more perfect. It couldn't be even more on the nose. I'm just imagining these just like, sausage necked guys just, huffing and puffing as they're running down the street, chasing after.
They were in a car
running, shuffling. They're
shuffling. They were driving.
Pulling up onto the sidewalk, like
you got those lights
onto the
sidewalk.
You got those
lights.
Yeah,
you got those lights.
They would go wherever they want.
They're driving through parks, probably. Got to catch them all, man.
They were, in the brief. It discusses how like they were caught on tape, like, arguing which route was better to get there quickest.
Yes.
And like
body cams finally working.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Accountability, finally.
No, I mean, that's what caught them was, they were just dinguses having, their dash cam was on recording them, actively ignoring a call. I
thought that was
and discussing how best to ignore it.
I thought the first rule was as soon as you start doing anything related to police work, like catching Pokemon, you turn the cameras off. I thought that was how it worked.
That's standard operating procedure. Come on. These guys are falling down on the job.
Yeah. Not living up to their duties. Yeah.
So, whoever got robbed, or the robber got away, which is typically going to happen, was not wasn't the only person harmed by Pokemon Go. I know some of us here had some Pokemon Go injuries from back in the day.
Oh man. Yeah, dude. Like, literally, Pokemon Go is responsible for triggering my like late onset adult allergies. like had never taken an allergy pill before in my life, and when that dropped in 2016, we were all living in the city. I remember going out to all the parks, hitting all the spots, battling, doing duels. I mean, it was great. It was fun. It was actually awesome. And both back then and now it's reaffirming like, Pokemon Go is going to make me, have to rethink my, well-known stance that mobile games are fucking trash. Cause it turns out they're actually praxis.
Those gaming injuries.
We met comrades.
Like my experience with Pokemon Go is so much different being rural. Like up here, it was, occasionally you go out and you walk around Montpelier and you'll catch a couple things, but it was basically just like hoarding eggs and just hoping that hatching eggs would get you the missing things, because that's all you could do.
One hot spot. No, I remember the difference between living in the city and then coming home, like for like a weekend, and it would just be like, we were just in like we were, had all the resources available, and then it's like I had to walk to the town library, and that was it.
Well, yeah, at least you're like close enough to that.
Yeah.
When I would go home, it was like I was in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, it's like imagine my house when I like walk to like the Notch, maybe.
Yeah, the BP.
Oh yeah, which is a shell now, I think.
Everyone knows that's the hearth, as we like to call it here at Campaign Comrades.
But the these mobile games can't always be good, folks. and I think we're seeing this trend explode. Mobile gaming is taking up, the basically over 50% of the entire, gaming industry itself. It like made over $136 billion last year and is like only expected to continue to grow and explode. And we saw that with like our first big story of the week. Take-Two Interactive, the parent company of major studios like Rockstar and owners of games like the 2K franchise, Borderlands, BioShock, Mafia, all sorts of stuff. They purchased a company that I had no knowledge of existing beforehand. The mobile game developer Zynga, they purchased it for, or agreed to purchase it for $12.7 billion.
Big bucks. I do want to say that is, up until more recent mergers, literally days
Which we'll
later,
get to. Yeah.
that had been the largest announced deal in the video game industry at $12 billion or almost 13. So that's not a small number
Right.
for this
And so-
industry at all.
Yeah, so that in of itself shows like the priorities that these studios are taking and the major publishers are taking. It's that mobile is the future of these games, and
Hell
like
yeah.
for the worse, I think we can definitively say before even getting into it. But
I don't know about you, man. I'm excited for having to collect my Grand Theft Auto guns while I walk around a city and watch ads on my phone before I get them. That sounds pretty freaking awesome to me. And unlocking new players in 2K, I get to unlock my team by going to the stadium. Maybe I take a picture and watch an ad there, and now I get to play the full game of 2K. This is like a pretty sweet future we're talking about here.
You're gonna have to start capturing NBA players like Pokemon. Like you're gonna have to go up to
owner.
LeBron.
You're gonna
James
see everyone
and
running
throw
down the street. There's a LeBron raid. You got to get over here.
Yeah,
You got to take him down in a 3-point contest. The more people you have, the more.
Well, but I think that this acquisition, we've discussed before how with the chip crisis, there's this bigger push into the streaming capabilities of games and these game companies, and I think that looking at mobile, that's a good way to scale up some of their other games. Already having the mobile streaming infrastructure, and they give the game away in the press release, the Zynga press release, saying like they recognize that it's that video games are the largest vertical in the entertainment industry. So like they're trying to tap into like every possible consumer base, and these mobile gaming and the streaming gamings are just a way to hit like a younger audience that already have their parents already have iPads. They might not have a console or a PC, but they could throw an iPad in their 7-year-old's hand and they're playing Fortnite already. So I think this is going to continue to be a trend.
Just getting major Blizzard, Diablo Immortals. You guys don't have a phone? Vibes from that.
But speaking of giving the game away, I just want to read this quick little blurb from the Take-Two press release announcing it. They say, perhaps most importantly, we have the ability with Zynga from both a development and a publishing point of view to optimize the creation of new titles based on Take-Two's core intellectual property. We believe we have the best collection of console and PC intellectual property in the interactive entertainment business, and it's basically nearly entirely unexploited from mobile and free to play around the world. And it's just like, yeah, I saw some analysis that goes further. It's like, Take-Two had some skin in the mobile games before. They had like, it represented something like 12% of their profits in like the last fiscal year, but this thing is going to kick that up to like over 50%. And yeah, you can just imagine that a free to play cross-platform GTA Online thing is going to make a fucking $1 billion like immediately, and just all these gotcha freemium microtransaction games, like it's just ripe for the picking. Like, yeah, you got to pay $1 to get like your gold plated AK. You gotta, like pay a certain amount of money to like, customize your favorite car and all
Well,
that
it's not
kind of
even
stuff.
that. It's more like pay for the chance, because all of that is like,
Right.
It's because it's like the Dropbox shit.
Yeah, you pay for a chance to get like our random selection of decals, and they're all fucking shit.
Yeah. So if
They're all
you
fucking
the
dog
one that
shit.
you want, you have to spend $65 to actually get, or
Yeah. No, and then I think as someone, that's the thing. This it sucks because I mean this makes sense from their perspective as a business, and I think 2K and Take Two, well, it's Take Two, made a pretty great deal here. They just bought the largest player in the segment of the industry that comprises literally 50% of the revenues. Like, we all talk about gaming, and all of us are very much focused on console, PC, or like tabletop. None of us really play any of these phone games because they're essentially just electronic gambling. You're either just solving a puzzle and then getting some rewards, or doing something like that. I mean, they are getting more developed and becoming more like first person shooting is available on games and things like that. But
well, and like, we're not either not children that don't have access to the consoles that we want to play Call of Duty on the mobile phone, or like aren't big enough Call of Duty fans that we have to play Call of Duty in every iteration possible.
Right.
So like, those are those target audience there.
Right. Or grandma at home playing Candy Crush for 8 hours a day. But like, I think it's interesting to see what they paid for what is going to be essentially make them the market leader in cell phone gaming, or mobile gaming, which is, like I said, literally almost 50% of the entire industry's revenue.
I think it is just over 50%.
Yeah,
it is officially like the majority.
Yeah, exactly. So they just bought a huge revenue stream for themselves. And then on top of that, you just mentioned those games. I play all of those games. Those are some of my favorite games to play. Grand Theft Auto, Red Dead Redemption, 2K, and BioShock are some of my favorite games over the last 10 years. So those are huge IPs that, to Mike's point, you add in your point, Ben, you add the mobile to it, and it's just instant money. Like, this is going to be, there's no doubt they're going to be releasing mobile versions and free to play versions related to these IPs. And that sucks because it means they're not going to focus on the good part of this IP and like creating GTA 6. Like, if you think GTA 6 was going to be 2025 before this deal, it's going to be 2030 now. Like, there's no point in doing that shit anymore because they have so much money elsewhere.
Completely. And like, because GTA Online already made up, or was one of the largest contributors to Take-Two's revenue already. How is that not going to be the priority going forward?
One thing I want to say, just for the listeners' sake and for our own sakes, this deal and the Microsoft Activision one we'll talk about later, they have not been purchased yet. It's Correct. More than likely that they will go through, but what has happened so far, I was thinking about it, is like, you could liken it to like pre-ordering a game that does not have a certain release date.
Well, so the Zynga one technically they have 45 days to field other offers.
I mean, that's
and then there's all the other steps afterwards.
Well, and that 45 days is a statutory thing. So the Activision Blizzard Microsoft deal has that as well. That's just like part of the process. But I'm kind of interested to see if and this could go both ways on the Microsoft deal or the Zynga deal. Someone could come in now and offer Zynga more because they've seen the Microsoft deal and now like see what the industry is worth. And that seems to be a small price now compared to purchasing Activision Blizzard.
I mean, there was the rumor that Sony could be interested in taking Take-Two as a whole. And if Take-Two got Zynga, that would be one whole.
Yeah. And then and that's exactly what the Take-Two spokesperson said. And like that they're, it's the largest vertical in the industry. And that's exactly what is going to happen, is like, they're going to continue to just purchase so that you have all of these smaller companies under the bigger brand of Sony, Microsoft, whatever. And the way that our antitrust law is structured is, as long as there is some sort of consumer benefit you could prove, like this is colloquially, it's not the actual standard, but as long as there's a consumer benefit, prices go down and don't go up.
Well, yeah, isn't it? It's not necessarily that prices go down, isn't it? It's that prices don't go up.
Yes,
like they
exactly.
Stagnancy
Yes.
is still okay. It's still good.
Yes. As long as the consumer, is not paying more, because we have a very consumer focused antitrust laws, which actually pit the consumer against the worker. But, as long as the price does not go up, you're good to go. But so I just wonder if the purchasing prices of either of these deals are going to kind of like move around, either based on the market or based on the SEC and DOJ review of the deals.
I know I read something that was speculating on this, and going through all the major potential buyers and rating them on how likely they were to potentially get involved. What I saw is that they said a bidding war was unlikely. This was, I think, however, before the news of the Microsoft deal, which again we've already now touched on a couple times, and I think we'll get to right after this. So I think that does change. That definitely does change.
The thing about this is they offered a pretty substantial premium over where their current stock price is. So it's a
in which one, Zynga
for Zynga. So the offer itself is fairly substantial. I just wanted to throw that out there. Just thought that was they've added their market cap currently is $10 billion. Prior to the sale, it would have been 2/3 of that. So it was about $7 billion. So they've already generated, and that is still less than what they're being purchased for. They're being purchased for 13. So it's generated, $3 billion of additional value to their stock price already. And then they're still making a premium on top of that. So, Zynga,
dude, this shit is all so made up.
It is.
These numbers are just
it's all
made up.
monopoly numbers.
It's and that's that's the capital financial markets for you. It's all fugazi. We all just make shit up, and you're just not part of it, so you don't get the benefit.
The last thing I have here was from an investor call with Zynga's CEO, Frank Gabau, I don't know.
Doesn't matter anymore.
Says they plan to use Zynga's Chart Boost ad platform to, quote, acquire new users more efficiently and optimize mobile ad inventory. So it's like, this is the real reason why they made the purchase.
100%.
It's all about the infrastructure that they have to just spam their ad inventory for all these properties. There's just untapped market potential. But then, of course, if we had any reservation, whatever, if this was good or bad news, I think it's answered here. And it's yes, there may be something with NFTs in the future. He said in that call, the idea that players will play to earn or play to own is very compelling idea that we think will have legs as the industry develops. And we before we jump into it, it's these things are all fundamentally intertwined, and I think it's most clearly seen in the Microsoft deal. But before we go to that, Rick.
Yeah, no, I just want to say, I'm fairly excited to wake up every day, log into each of my games' mobile apps, download the new NFT that they're giving me because I've watched a minute of ads, and then I get to play my game that day. I think that's a pretty awesome future that we're looking at, and we can all thank Take-Two and Zynga for leading the way. So pretty awesome.
I'm excited.
Got to hit those quotas somehow. Got to do it.
Yeah.
I think it's funny that the CEO thinks that, this is going to be a compelling idea as industry develops. Meanwhile, there was a survey and 70% of game developers are against the idea of NFTs in games because they understand
it, but that number is not nearly high enough.
Yeah.
Yes, but you have to think of the demographic of
No, I
game
get it.
developers.
No, I get it.
You
I
know,
get it.
There's
They're
way
so
too many
they're so
crypto
prone.
bros.
Yeah, they're so
Yeah.
prone to the fintech entrapments.
I was honestly surprised with the 70% number, if we're being
I was too.
perfectly honest. But
I was like, oh damn, that's pretty high. That's my reaction was like,
Yeah.
damn.
I would have said like 55.
Can we make a quick segue to just have a quick laugh at the cratering of Bitcoin and the crypto market? Like, just wiped
Yes.
out $200 billion.
Didn't El Salvador just buy like a fuck ton of Bitcoin again?
Oh yeah.
Like 410 or something like that.
I forget. Yeah, which South American country?
It was El Salvador. I know that much because they're the ones
so
who
it
want to
was a
make their
Central
whole
America-
currency
yeah.
Bitcoin.
Okay, is it?
Bitcoin.
Yeah,
Central. Yeah, it was like a Central American country that was making their entire economy run off Bitcoin.
They set up like Bitcoin ATMs.
And what's going to happen is when the group in power leaves, all of those Bitcoin receipts, those blockchains are just going to kind of vanish.
Yeah. Oops.
Oof.
Oops.
Almost like they were never real to begin with.
Well, Bitcoin is, may be set for even worse dips because the Treasury said that they were looking into cryptocurrencies.
I mean, everyone
So
is
as
looking
soon
into
as,
cryptocurrencies now.
Exactly.
Like every country's starting to crack down.
Yeah. As soon as the American government says we are the crypto kings, Bitcoin goes.
All right, so that was a little bit of a tangent, but we've also we've mentioned it already, kind of indirectly and directly. The real big news of the week, because the Zynga deal had basically its week in the sun as the biggest deal in gaming history, but soon to be just completely blown out of the water by another completely made up number. Where Microsoft is has agreed to purchase Activision Blizzard King for a reported $68.7 billion.
Or a cleanly rounded 69.
Yeah, nice. The only maybe like kind of good thing about it is that it's a funny number.
Some would say the best number.
Yeah, with this purchase though, it's going to make Xbox officially the third largest gaming company by revenue, behind Sony and then Tencent at the top.
Boo, 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 and more boos. But I just want to say I'm only upset because I'm a Sony fanboy, and this is upsetting to me because it means Sony might not make as much money if Call of Duty's not released on PlayStation. It's the only reason. I don't care about what this means for the gaming industry or the fact that video games were now ruined. I only care.
Want your treats.
Yeah, I only care about the fact that this hurts Sony because I'm a Sony fanboy. I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, it's one of those. Well, first, didn't Phil Spencer say, at least right now, that he's like, yep, all the normal games that were in development and stuff are going to go both ways, and we don't intend to pull games away from Sony.
Yeah.
Was what he said.
They will. They will fulfill all contractual commitments.
Yeah, and that's like you take Phil Spencer's word for what you take it for. I mean, this is also the man that said, we were going to be rethinking our contracts and relationship with Activision and moving away from them, and then they purchased the company.
Dude, such kayfabe, such fucking kayfabe, man. Dude, this is like, I think Rick, you sent this like to the chat. It's like, dude, this is just such like big brain thinking.
Yeah,
like, this was, it's all a fucking scam. Yeah.
Basically, Phil Spencer says his things. You take it for what it is. He's very good at what he does. His job is to
that
collaborate between Microsoft's
Yeah.
financial side and their customer front and keep their people happy. And this is exactly what he's doing with this. Game Pass is going to be filled with COD every year. Now Xbox users don't need to sort of pay for COD in a way.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that you look at it and there's people who are like championing this. They're like, oh, this will be like the death knell for, like the Sonys or the Nintendos. Like first, Nintendo doesn't care. Nintendo's never cared about any of those games, to be honest.
Nope.
And second, it's like with Sony, it's like, why would you want them to die at that point? It's like, think of all of the games that, are coming to PC now that, have been on Sony that, are great. People wouldn't get to experience if the company was dead. God of War, Horizon, there's the rumors that we're going to get Returnal and a couple others.
And they're just never they're too big of a competitor. It's like there will always be Walmart and Amazon.
Well, like as you said too, Mike, this acquisition makes them third still in gaming revenue behind
Sony.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
right, and we also have to mention the irony that the announcement of the agreement came out on the same day that the was it the DOJ came out with them, or is
No,
it
it's
the FEC?
the FEC.
Yeah, FEC came out with the FTC came out with the new their plans for new guidelines for mergers and acquisitions. So basically this was just a big fuck you on Microsoft's part, calling Washington's bluff, because let's be honest, I don't see this getting blocked in any meaningful capacity.
It's never going to get blocked, and
but it's a big reason. Sorry, before you go off, and the big reason is because of that fact. It's like, it is, even though it shouldn't be the case, it is kind of hard to, argue that antitrust case against someone who is still third place. They're not number one.
I'm just picturing midterm election Biden. The one thing he does is just like disband this case and lose the Expro vote.
Listen here, Mac. Xbox, it's getting too big.
It's too big.
He's like, why are we losing midterms?
The head of the FTC, Lena Khan, she's like a kind of a Warren style bust them up type dem. So she's not terrible, especially like in this area of antitrust.
But completely ineffectual. But like, by that definition,
yes, correct.
Completely ineffectual.
Well, and like she was like a professor, so exactly like Elizabeth Warren. Like she has the ideas, like they're there, but like they're not going to be applied in effect. And like we said, the legal structure that they're working within is just like the effect on the consumer. It doesn't even you could have. From what I understand, you could have like you could have 90% of the market share, but like if you are not, raising prices on the consumer, they're going to allow it to go through. It's all the effect on the consumer pricing and, what consumers are paying.
Yeah, we don't care, if a merger has an undue influence over, market prices, or like, making it more difficult for other companies and new companies to compete,
and that's what it is.
The free market.
Well, because like on its face, it looks like the consumer is benefiting because the prices are stagnant or the prices are, go down. But in reality, when you're, allowing this type of antitrust regime, like you're having a huge effect on workers because it's, you're looking for like a economic like efficiency in the sense of like cutting costs. So workers get their salaries slashed and hours raised, so that the consumer prices stay stagnant or go down.
Fewer studios, fewer employers means less ability for employees to have competitive salaries. There is, they don't need to collude to do wage fixing. It just becomes a de facto, if not de jure, part of just the industry as a whole. That is just a reality of the trend toward monopolization.
Exactly. And it's not part of the analysis, like
the one thing
a monopoly.
I want to bring up that I think like Rick brought this up we were talking about this in the group chat earlier. It's like this purchase kind of is a microcosm and encapsulates everything that is going on and that is wrong and bad with the video game industry, then to the entertainment industry, then to capitalism at large. Because again, this is like not news. I saw someone else like talking about, it's like this purchase was inevitable. If it wasn't, Microsoft buying Activision, something like this was inevitable. This is the trend, and they have no reason. These companies have no reason to not pursue this. Someone like brought up it's like Disney, who has the clearest stranglehold on popular culture. They're not sweating the FTC. So why the fuck should Microsoft, particularly again when you go back to the point where they're not number one? This is gonna improve their game profitability by again 50%, something ridiculous, but that's they still have the technical bit of like, oh yeah, but we're still we're still the little guy in comparison. We're still, competition is still as strong as ever.
There was the whole big fear initially that instead of Microsoft purchasing Activision, it was going to be Tencent. That was the big player that everyone was worried was going to be making this purchase before. That's like, it's the same thing.
Yeah, it was going to happen.
Yeah, and like it's part of the scandal. Like Activision is probably shopping around at some level to kind of dish, or at least Bobby Kotick, to dish this off so he could make his money and run. But like to your point, Ben, that they're only like third in the marketplace. They're not fully monopolized, and then they have like all these dinguses on the internet giving them free propaganda, trying to argue the definition of monopolization and prove that Microsoft is not,
because there's not one company means like it's not a monopoly. There's the difference between a monopoly and monopolization. It is a process. It is an active process of going in a direction. No, it's willful stupidity.
But I think your point of that this consolidation of the industry was inevitable, because as you said, it's a microcosm of what's happened everywhere else. It's happened in entertainment. You see Disney owns everything. Like, it's going to be these three major players. There was something I was looking at this market cap analysis of the industry, and it was essentially like, if you look at the other largest companies now outside of Microsoft, Sony, and the top three, whatever, Sony could purchase the next like 5 companies now for the same price Microsoft just spent on Activision. So you see that the M&A activity is there. The capital is there. Investors are coming to the industry now because they've seen how much money it makes. It's literally the largest media industry in the world. It's larger than anything else. So this is
it's larger than movies and music combined.
This will continue, and you're going to see consolidation to the point where it is going to just be these top 3 companies. It's going to be Sony, it's going to be Microsoft, it'll be like Take-Two, it'll be those 3, and that's it. And because why won't they buy them up? What would stop them? Nothing. There's no reason for them to let them be out there, because buying them up makes them more profitable. It makes it easier to compete because there is no competition. It's all to their benefit, and they have the resources to do it. And it's just going to hurt gamers, and it's going to hurt employees of these companies.
And to that point of just like, the popularity of M&A, of mergers and acquisitions, if you look at lawyers who are like the biggest leeches of capitalism, that M&A law is like for your corporate stooge, that wants to work at a big firm. Like, that's what they're looking into, because that's where the money is right now, because that's what's happening in the economy, is mergers and acquisitions all across every industry. So that's where the money is, and that's where they're going.
And the reason M&A is so big is because we're a fully realized market at this point. So there's nowhere to grow. The only way to grow at this point is purchasing. Like, organic growth in the US is so, it's not real. Everything is so saturated. You're either going to emerging markets, which is very expensive and difficult to get a foothold, or you're,
unless the government is offering you direct subsidies.
Yeah, of course.
Again, and this is why this is a perfect example of, like, say, the contradictions inherent to capitalism as a whole.
100%.
I think it's like this. You were kind of the first one to really bring up like what we think this will have an impact on the quality of games. I don't see how anybody can look at this and not see this as, driving to the lowest common denominator.
I mean, look at Disney. We keep talking about Disney in the entertainment industry. It's a perfect example. Like, we're just going to get the MCU for games, and it's going to be the worst of the worst.
Yeah, all pushed on your cloud streaming service. And again,
I was going to say, it's going to be even worse than just the MCU. It's going to be Disney Plus. Yeah. It's the Game Pass. It's the streaming. Everything's going to be dumbed down to have a streaming version.
Yeah, all this does is just further legitimize Game Pass, because let's also not forget, like, after this announcement that Microsoft makes another one, that Game Pass hits 25 million subscribers. They're just they're strengthening this library. It's clear that that's the direction.
I mean, they're clearly
that they're going, and
they're following the Netflix.
Microsoft is the leader, but is the leader in this. Even when you look at the speculation about the upcoming Sony Game Pass rival, how they're combining PS Plus and PS Now, codename Spartacus. It's Sony is has since 2019 has been partnered with Microsoft, leading Sony is reliant wholly upon Microsoft for their own cloud technology. So it's obvious that again that Microsoft is just closing the net further and consolidating. That's the theme of the episode. They're just bringing everything that they can under their own umbrella to make it impossible to deny the future of the industry. And just they are trying to gobble up as many producers as possible, to churn out as many games as cheaply as possible, so therefore seeing no direct benefit to developers. Like we've heard, it's mainly anecdotal, but that the Game Pass licensing deals are not netting studios and developers really any decent profits.
It's just
well, yeah, because right now
no one profits.
They're functioning on the Netflix model again. They're starting at a loss right now and getting it really cheap, so they get a lot of people involved. Now they're going to start ramping up the prices. They're going to start tiering. They're going to start giving you different models.
And even from the developer side, look at Spotify, or the musicians make nothing from their streams off Spotify. Right. Spotify is the one that makes the money. Here it's going to be the same thing. Xbox is going to make the money from Game Pass, but the third-party studios that Xbox doesn't own are going to get doo-doo for while Xbox continues to exploit their product.
I mean, Epic's doing the same thing right now on PC. Just a quick aside with Epic exclusives.
But the other thing that it's not been said anywhere, and we haven't mentioned it yet because of that, but as I think about this, and as I think about the Take-Two Zynga acquisition, not only are they going to want to go to these streaming models, but eventually there's no doubt that there will be a model that includes some form of advertising in your games. Like they're going towards that, because it's just the next way to monetize these sorts of revenue streams, is including ads and selling ad space where they have all these years. 25 million people on Xbox Game Pass is no small number. And if they just said, oh, every hour you play a game on Xbox Game Pass, you have to watch a 30-second ad, people are going to be mad for a couple days, but that's going to be it. And they're going to make a ton.
But then there's going to be a tier above where you can pay and avoid the ads.
Exactly. No, exactly. 100%.
Exactly.
So,
just like
and then they're going to start whittling it down that, that the base level Game Pass is only, the Microsoft games. And if you want the third
base level Game Pass doesn't let you download, only stream them.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if that's where it goes. The analysis I was reading about cloud gaming, which has been fraught with all sorts of fucking problems, and
who doesn't remember the Google Stadia advertisement campaign?
Yeah, Stadia. Is the biggest example. But they credit Microsoft as being the only successful, quote unquote, successful one with it, because it's not the main focus of the service, so like PS Now was, where the streaming is just a function. It's not the actual thing that's it's not the selling point. It's just part of it. But I totally see that as going.
There's going to come a point where the base Xbox that they sell, the cheapest tier, is going to be a little box
Chromebook
with 50 gigabytes.
Oh, yeah, great. No, that's exactly right.
With 50 gigabytes of memory that just plugs in via HDMI
just like
with
an
an
Xbox
Ethernet
Chromebook.
Boom.
Yep.
Game Pass only, streaming only.
Yeah. Well, and I think Apple had some of those tried to have some of that capability with the Apple TV, that you could play mobile games running off that.
Apple's always dabbled around with the gaming industry.
They're all moving there. Netflix is doing that.
Yeah.
Because Apple's the one who early in the 90s had the Apple II was the best gaming computer at the time.
Yeah.
They tried to make a console. You can find it on
just
eBay.
Mobile games.
Yeah, and I think with the just continuing on that thought pattern, they've already gotten rid of disk drives on models of
Series
the new
S.
consoles. Like, yeah, exactly. Would you be? I wouldn't be shocked if
And
the
on
next model
computers,
doesn't
period.
include.
Well, yeah.
Right, exactly.
But like the Xbox tier especially is like
Yeah,
consoles
and I
and the
don't think
buy-in.
you see it like you just said. Computers, no more disk drives. We're seeing models of consoles without disk drives. Next iteration, there's probably not going to be a disk drive model because they want to force you into these streamings. Because then they get to own it. They can take away your access to it whenever they want, and or suddenly charge more for that access. Like it
or
limits,
change the
it's a
game
way,
on you.
right? Like there's just it all
Right.
sucks.
No, yeah, that's a really good point, Mike. It's like it just, completely erodes any stability in the quality of the art itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, like think what happened to Always Sunny.
Yeah.
I can't even think of it now.
The
Lethal Weapon episodes.
Lethal Weapon episodes, yeah.
Yep.
So like you only have access to those now if you have physical copies of that season or the seasons that had those episodes. Imagine they take shit out of GTA because Take-Two gets canceled by the Rad Libs because there's
some kid goes
prostitutes in it.
Yeah,
or something.
some kid goes viral for mowing down prostitutes in their car, something that everybody in GTA did 20 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. So like that feature is gone, and you can never play that again unless you have like a PS2 and you're playing it on your.
Something I find just funny about all of this, like looking at it from the broad perspective, they're basically circling Microsoft, essentially, especially. They're basically circling back around to their stance they had back when the Xbox One launched that buried them initially. The always online, need to be connected, no reselling games. The game is to you only. You cannot give it to someone else. At the time, it was Connect always on, which, yeah, that's fun.
I forgot about all that.
Yeah, no, this is why Xbox got fucked
Yeah.
during this last generation.
Yeah.
They started off so bad because the original Xbox One launch was focused on always online, Connect always, and hey, by the way, this can plug into your cable so that you can watch TV through it because people are using their consoles for streaming. So obviously, we're going to dedicate like 45 minutes of our conference to how it's a streaming box when this is your first chance to look at your gaming console.
Phil Spencer has again given the game away in the past already. He has said, I mean, it's in line with the reality that PS5s, have, despite the shortages, have more than double the sales of the the new Xboxes. But Phil has said that we don't need to sell consoles to succeed in our business goals.
They've changed how they want to win because they know they can't win in the current route. I mean, you have to think about it in the fact, like, I've been to some stores, Xbox Series S consoles are on the shelves. You can go find them out in the wild. And that is lumped into that Xbox sales number in total. Meanwhile, I've never seen a Sony console in the wild. Never in a store. So, like, you have to understand that part of that Xbox sales number, like, yes, the Series X consoles are always selling out, just like the PS5s are always selling out. But if the Series S is available, that means that, there's still less demand than they have supply for some of those lower tier versions. And it's just an interesting way to think about looking forward because PS5's diskless console, the digital, was Sony's version.
They make like none of them. Those are even harder to get because they like have made none of them.
The diskless or the disc?
Yeah, the digital ones. There's something like 10 times the capacity of the disc versions.
I mean, it kind of makes sense if they're going to push the backwards compatibility from the previous generation, which was all disc consoles.
Well, hell, they're doing that. That's still going to be part of the streaming thing. They're working that into it as well. I wouldn't say that's.
Oh no, I'm just saying that on the PS4
anyway.
generation, they still had disc drives, so people might still have physical games. So you want to keep that disc drive around for those people. That way, they can still use those for now. Maybe not in the future.
Yeah, they'll phase to, like I said, they'll probably next console generation will just all be.
Even digital. Nintendo did it. The original Wii came with a GameCube slot, and then the later iterations of it lost that GameCube slot.
And not the other reason they want to go digital is it's cheaper. They don't have to pay for materials of a disc. Like that's more money per sale.
Well, it's funny if you look at the PS5 design, like people were complaining about the design, but if you look at it, it's because the disc drive is set up in a way that they can just pop it off and it's a digital. Like look at how it's attached there. It's just right there to be taken out. Then it's just a different plastic.
But I think one other thing that we touched on a little bit but haven't harped on is just like the chip shortage. That they correctly see that this is going to be a long-term issue and are adjusting their business model as such. Whether it's going to work or not, we'll find out. I assume it will work because things like Netflix have worked despite, it's a model that succeeds even though it fails.
Or say or it fucks the consumer at least.
Yeah. Well, and it fails in the sense that they're in the red all the time.
Right. They're not actually making money.
But that's our economy doesn't work like that anymore. So as long as they're getting investors to like dump money and they could pump the interest in the media of whatever product they want, it'll still be successful to them.
Yeah, as long as the stock price goes up, that's a success. Yeah. And this all drives the stock price up. The one thing I think Matt, you made a good point about the Xbox One launch that I hadn't really thought about, but they were really almost way ahead of their time with what they were trying to do. And something we've talked about on other podcast episodes we've done to come out, I think, is the idea of like the fact that these things are just being forced down gamers' throats a lot of the time, like NFTs, etc. And I think that was probably the last time that one of these companies took a swing at forcing a new type of way of interacting with games that didn't work. And we just weren't there yet.
The beginning of the end was Horse Armor DLC.
They're ready.
that was the beginning of the end. That was the testing of the waters that started the downfall of the gaming community.
Well, and I think one of the differences with the Xbox One was, especially like the Kinect always being on, that was a hardware thing.
Yeah.
So like, it's
harder.
Microsoft people aren't going to use that or not going to buy that. Yeah. And people aren't going to buy that. Like that might actually push a company to change their mind. Whereas like with the like loot boxes and shit like that, they could continue to force it on you and rubes are going to pay for it. In these little microtransactions and they're going to be fine and they could force that upon us. But one thing that, being ahead of their time in a Bobby Kotick interview, or it was like Bobby and Phil Spencer on like one of the morning news shows. First of all, Bobby had an ear to ear grin. He was, happier than a pig in shit.
Dude, mean mugging the whole time.
Yeah, it was amazing. But and I was watching Hassan's breakdown of it, and this is where I saw it. And he was saying how Phil Spencer was talking about VR and like how like that's the next thing that they're looking towards. And one like VR and like the metaverse has been around for a while. It's like something that exists, but I'm hoping that the metaverse will be more like the Kinect, and there will be pushback that slows its progress. That I don't see happening for things like NFTs, where I think they could, more perniciously like force those upon us and make that a thing.
We've mentioned him now a couple times, so we haven't really gotten into it, and I think it's worth kind of sidetracking us a little bit to talk about, what a shithead Bobby Kotick is. And there when the deal came out or like was announced, there was some speculation, concerning his status. But it seems for the time being, it seems to have been confirmed that he will exit once the deal is complete, but not without a handsome severance package of at least $250 million. We're looking up like on an upward end of $400 million. But I just want to quickly just go off on a list of just like let's just like talk about Bobby Kotick, because getting into like the history of Activision is also leads us to like the last kind of thing that I know I wanted to talk about that we again only had briefly touched on with the nature of the workplace culture at Activision and what this deal means for workers and organizers. But like first we got to like look at Kotick at the the top. He's this guy he's the CEO since like the early 90s, oversees decades of horrendous and vile workplace practices, including alleged rapes, helps cover them up from the board and the public, then promises he will step down if he can't fix the company culture, quote unquote, quickly, while also being the subject of at least one harassment complaint himself. Also, and did you guys see the recent rumor that he considered buying Kotaku and PC Gamer to change the narrative about Activision?
Yeah.
I mean, I just
what a fucking sicko.
Listen, this guy, he's the founder of Activision. He's a true gamer. I don't know. I think this all sounds very deserved, well-earned, stand-up person.
You know what I'm excited for? I'm excited for his human growth hormone arc. Because you know that's coming. With that,
his
250
Bezos
mil,
arc, his
Bezos villain arc. He's just gonna be like, fuck it. No one could touch me. I'm, not gonna get any repercussions for these sexual harassment things. I just sold my company that has, all these material issues with the workplace, and I'm walking away a fucking, even bigger multimillionaire.
Reminder that Bobby Kotick was in Epstein's Little Black Book. He wasn't on the flight logs, but he was in the Little Black Book.
I always forget that.
And the thing about that though, beyond like $250 million, a lot of money, but this guy's been cashing in for decades. He just got compensated. He just made $100 million in comp the last year. He's not even been doing the dollar CEO salary thing. He's just getting cash on cash.
Yeah, COD's the best-selling game every year for like the past fucking decade.
Just print that money, baby.
Well, and their stock prices have always, tending to kind of like go up a bit. And as we've said, the gaming industry has been the biggest growing industry in entertainment. So of course,
I mean, essentially, prior to these allegations, the stock had been trading around its 5-year high, if not all time. Yeah, no, it was pretty much 70? At its all-time high, right around $100 to start 2021. And it traded right around that range until the summer, which is when all of the allegations and news started coming out. So
and again, we already talked about it, and there's it's an often cited interview with Phil Spencer's. He was poking that bear to help drive that price down even lower, and then completely backtracks as soon as the talks are starting. It was all a plan. I mean, all the strategy.
I just want to know when did Microsoft reach out? Like, was it the day after the news dropped? Because I'm sure they were immediately licking their lips, like, oh, one of the largest developer, their stock price is about to go down significantly. Like, their value is about to be cut. Essentially, was cut in half. They were trading at $50 in December. So Microsoft was just like, ooh, discount shopping time, clearance sale. We're buying Activision. Like, no doubt in my mind.
Yeah, Microsoft just did what I do when it's like holiday shopping time. You see the really expensive thing for like a decent % off, and you're like, yeah, I can justify that. Like, I'll never see it at that
That's
price
like the
again.
Steam sale.
Yeah.
Microsoft was like, oh, Steam's having a sale.
Yeah.
Better jump on that shit.
Oh, look at all these
off.
cheap games. Exactly. It puts them all in cart. It adds up to like $200, and you're like,
Yeah.
It adds up to $67 billion. Just, ooh.
I would love to have been a fly on the wall for like the negotiations between the lawyers when Microsoft's lawyers got berated by Activision for Phil Spencer trying to actively lower the stock price.
Yeah.
I bet Phil just sat there and looked at them and was just like, World of Warcraft on Game Pass, and just looked at them.
Yep.
Basically, just just dropping his dick on the table.
We will save your
game. For sure. That was what Microsoft did after the stock price dropped. Phil Spencer started a Zoom call and just whipped it out.
Dropped
in front of Bobby Kodak's face.
He was just tubing it.
World of Warcraft on Game Pass. You're getting your ass kicked by Final Fantasy 14. We're gonna help you.
So Activision, they're doing their duty here. It was actually something that you sent, Mike, about the actual legal analysis. They're on top of all their filings, and then you sent us this bit here. We gotta mention these things pulled out from the SEC filings about the merger. 3 points. According to Activision, there is no strike to the knowledge of the company ongoing. Which is, in reference to the month-and-a-half long strike of Raven Software QA workers. The second point being there is no material allegations of sexual harassment since 2018. And then the third, no legal proceedings that would have quote unquote material adverse effects.
Did you forget the
I love
fourth?
that one.
There's no war in Ba Sing Se.
Jeez, man. It's just like we could not get any more dystopian if we tried.
I mean, so I'm a little bit out of my element here, and I was trying to brush up a bit before we started recording, but there is a lot of like legal terms doing a lot of work in these three.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure with the strike, it's because there's not an actual union. So that
It's technicalities, man.
yeah, it's a technicality there, and I think there's something else with
I think all of these are technicalities.
Yeah.
yes, I mean all of them are technicalities. Yeah, I mean material is doing a lot of work.
Yeah.
Material has a very like specific compliance, like legal compliance definition that I don't know off the top of my head and won't do it justice. But there's also something with the filings themselves, like the initial filing doesn't have to, especially because of these other technicalities, like doesn't have to include that. Like they could get away with saying this, but on like the final like DOJ and FTC review, I think some of the California case and the EEOC case will have to be, will come up in the filings more clearly, and there won't be so much of these technicalities. But, it still is ridiculous on its face that you're not going to acknowledge a group of workers striking for better work conditions, or that you have, high profile legal proceedings going on currently.
Literally is like a major news story. I mean, the other thing I like about this is the fact that they're just like, no major sexual assault harassment allegations over the last 5 years. You see the counter behind us. It's been 5 years since the last incident. So we're good. It's cool. Nothing to worry about here. Don't worry about the lawsuit either. That's also
2017. We don't talk about that.
Yeah, we don't talk about it.
Yeah. So I think I just looked up material quickly, and in this context, in the contract, and it may have more specific definitions within the mergers and acquisitions context, but it's material is a description frequently attributed to an important contractual provision or stipulation that would alter the contract's performance. So the sexual harassment in this context of this particular filing isn't going to have an effect on Activision's ability to sell the corporation to Microsoft. The legal proceedings are not proceedings that would have a material effect on the ability to sell, and so on like that.
But is Microsoft going to be taking on the fiscal responsibility though?
Yes, I mean they have to in the merger. Like all of your liabilities change. You can't buy a corp, sell your corporation so that the legal liabilities disappear. They'll travel.
Yeah, and I think I was kind of making jokes earlier, but like on a serious note with this they're kind of is telling on what's important, because it's saying, while we all know none of there are allegations, there are legal proceedings, there is a worker strike, none of those things, it's ultimately saying none of those things are going to have an impact on the business, which we all know is actually true. None of these things are going to ultimately impact the bottom line, despite how fucking terrible they are. So it's kind of interesting to see them directly pretty much admit that, just be like, yep, these bad things, don't worry about them, because ultimately they're not going to change the money. We're still making a lot of it. And that sucks.
I think all of this, goes to say solidarity with the 34 Raven QA employees who have, officially started the process of forming a union. They are, entering into talks with the Communication Workers of America for representation and are seeking voluntary recognition by Activision. I don't know what this means for, what the timelines could be. Do they potentially successfully form the union before the purchase is completed, and what that may have an effect, or, what is Microsoft going to do to try to stifle this from exploding to their other studios?
Was there a date by which, so I think the expected date of the Microsoft deal going through was
June 2023. That's the end of their fiscal year.
And my experience, at least with the NLRB, and this was in a higher ed context, the contract the vote, starting with the vote that the Raven workers just did, which was like a signature collection to show, it was like a poll to show that there was interest in a union. From like that time to signing the contract took us 11 months. So, I mean, take that what you will. It's a different industry, and this is the first of its kind. But if it's under a year, I would be surprised, but that still puts it in a timeline that, it's potentially before the official purchase of Microsoft. I don't know enough about employment law or labor law to know whether, I'm sure that the talks would just transition over to the new management, because like the union itself is a like organization outside of the workplace, technically. But yeah, so they had, Raven has asked for the voluntary recognition, but that will never happen. Even if they had 100%.
I mean, Activision is quote unquote is like, considering it or evaluating it.
But, even, we had the Vadio union, which they voluntarily accepted it, but that was like
that's an indie studio. It's a 12 it was like a 12-person indie studio or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So like, that was at the management correctly saw that it's to their benefit to unionize, but Activision is going to use every legal maneuver they can, beyond your typical union busting, like that we saw with Amazon, like the old school tactics. They're going to try to exclude people from the group. And the more that they fight is what's going to drag out the process. And, so you may see them drag it out to try to, make it to that when the Microsoft deal would be going through. And while it may not have like legal ramifications, it's just like the PR, the confusion and turnover, it's a good time to push it to, or let Microsoft take it over, and we don't have to deal with it anymore, type thing.
All right, that was a lot. Any final thoughts? This is a story that's gonna be evolving over the next year, so I don't, this is not the end of it. We will be talking about this some more, a lot going forward. Again, as we've said many times, this is where the industry is going. We're going to see more stories like this as well, and we'll be here to cover it. But yeah, if any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think as you said, this is the future of the industry for the time being. We're going to see this consolidation. We're going to see this M&A activity. And, ultimately, it's going to not be good for gamers or the quality of the product or the workers. And it just is unfortunate that we're going to see our game quality get reduced due to all of this, because, again, there's just no incentive to make good games once they own them all. Why would they spend the money to make them good? They're not going to. So don't get your hopes up that this is anything good for any of us besides the shareholders of these corporate entities.
Profit motive kills all, kills creativity. It is not good for you, the consumer. All right, till next time, though. We'll see you.
Till next time.
Bye-bye.